Hi, my name is Susan Clater, and I'm preparing this video recording for Journeyman Requirements. My recording is going to be done on Varroa monitoring. Varroa monitoring is important because Varroa mites transmit viruses to bees, and those viruses can seriously damage honeybee colonies. These viruses include deformed wing virus, acute bee paralysis virus, Israel bee paralytic virus, cashmere virus, and others. They also feed on the fat bodies and hemolymph of the bees, which can lead to poor bee nutrition, shortened lifespans, and winter losses. The goal of this video is to demonstrate effective assessment, treatment, and outcomes in the control of the Varroa mite. There are multiple ways to test and treat for Varroa. Testing options include sticky board, sugar shake, alcohol wash, and CO2 chamber. Treatment options include Apivar, Apistan, oxalic acid, formic acid, Hopguard, and others. My video is being recorded in December when the brood is very low. It is also cold, so I'm not choosing a mite treatment that will require opening the hive or disturbing the cluster. I'll be using the sticky board method to assess for mite load, then treat with oxalic acid with a vaporizing gun. Then I'll read the drop and reassess mite load with another sticky board test. My goal is to reduce mite count to a level that will not harm my bees and will allow winter survival and healthy spring buildup. Oxalic acid is a good choice this time of year as it is relatively non-toxic to bees, and there should be minimal capped brood in the hive. Oxalic acid is ineffective under capped brood. Since the treatment is timed for the lowest brood levels and during cold weather when foraging is limited, close to 100% of the bees in the hives will be treated. One treatment is typically all that is necessary in the wintertime rather than the customary 4 to 6 treatments used in the summer and fall. Oxalic acid currently cannot be used when honey supers are on for human consumption, but the oxalic acid will not harm the nectar or honey for bee consumption. I will be testing and treating all 7 of my hives, but for video purposes, only 1 or 2 will be shown in my apiary. If there are any significant Varroa counts in any of my hives, all hives will be treated. On day 1, I will place a clean sticky board under all the hives. These are sprayed with a spray oil to allow the mites to stick to the board and not crawl off. They will remain in place for 3 days, at which time they will be removed and a mite count performed. More than 2 to 3 mites per 24 hours indicates the need for treatment. They will then be cleaned and replaced back under the hives, and an oxalic acid treatment will be performed using a vaporizing gun into the back of the bottom board of the hives. The drop count will be read in 1 to 3 days. Counts that are greater than 30 mites per day post-treatment may indicate the need for an additional treatment. The sticky boards will again be cleaned, and several days later I'll place them back under the hives for a post-treatment mite count. Again, we are looking for a goal of 3 or less mites per day per hive. So shortly we'll be headed out to the apiary and we'll demonstrate placement of sticky boards and then treatment with oxalic acid. Thank you for listening. Okay, so here we are at the apiary. I have 7 hives. You can see them across there. I've condensed from 10 to 7 for winter, and hopefully they'll all make it through the winter. So I have my IPM boards over here, and I'm going to spray them with oil. So here's 2 of them. We're going to spray them real well. You don't want to do this close to the bees because if oil gets on the bees, it will plug up their spiracles and it will kill them. So when you're doing your spray, do it somewhere a little bit away from your bees so your bees aren't affected. It's cold out here today, very cold, so very few of the bees are actually flying. I'm going to put the phone down for a second so I can put my glove on. I may not need protective equipment since the bees are all in the hive and they're not flying, but I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So we're going to take the sticky IPM boards that have been sprayed with oil out to the apiary. This video will be very short because all I'm going to do is show you how to insert it in the back of the hive, and you have to use a screen bottom board for this mite monitoring to be effective. So I'm slipping it in here. There's little slots and they slip in right there, and it goes all the way in. And get out of there, I think I smashed one. And it kind of makes a seal. I like these with the wooden brace on them. There's actually 2 different sizes, and some fit some bottom boards and some fit the other bottom boards. So this one over here is wider. We'll go down here to one of the wider hives and show you how that one goes in. I like the ones with the wooden brace because it seals off the treatment application a little bit better, so that you don't get as much leak around the bottom board. So we'll slip this one in here. And it just goes all the way flush. And you can see that it's all the way flush. You can't even see it now. And that's it for today. In 3 days, we'll remove those sticky boards and we'll do mite counts. And then we'll come back on and show the oxalic acid vaporizer technique. Okay, so here we are back at the apiary, and it's time to do our oxalic acid treatment. My mite counts ranged from 2 to 12, and the current recommendation is anything more than 2 or 3 mites per sticky board, you should treat all the hives. So we're going to treat all 7 hives, but for demonstration purposes, we'll probably just show the first 2. So the first thing I want to show you some of the equipment that we need to do this. So we've got a small generator here, and that is our power source. My husband's going to be helping me with that and with the video once my hands are busy. The protective equipment that I wear includes latex gloves that are non-permeable, and this 3M mask is a respirator so that I'm not breathing the oxalic acid. It's an organic acid, and it permeates through skin and your lungs, and it can be dangerous to people, but it's not dangerous to bees. And then this is my oxalic acid vaporizer gun. It has to heat up to 230 degrees, and then in these little cups I have my oxalic acid, and the measurement is 1/4 teaspoon per box, regardless of the size of your box. So it doesn't matter if it's a deep, a medium, or a small. This hive is 3 boxes. My next hive is 3 boxes. So in each cup I have 3/4 teaspoon of oxalic acid. So I'm going to turn this camera over to my husband. He's going to start up the generator. You might not be able to see everything. I've got to don the rest of my protective equipment, so that'll take us just a second. Going to sound muffled now. These respirator masks can be bought at Lowe's or Home Depot, and you just need to make sure that they are industrial grade for vapors that can be dangerous. So once this heats up, I'm going to turn it over, and this goes on top of the little cup. This is very, very, very hot. Do not touch it. When you turn it over and pull it down from here. If you touch up here, you're going to get burned. So we're waiting for this to heat up to 230 degrees. It does take a little bit of time. Normally I would have started this before, but it's hard for you to hear. While it's heating up, I've drilled holes in the back of the bottom board, and that's where the gun goes in. The bees can fertilize those holes to where they're plugged up. And if you don't put, I use this piece of little piece of wire and all the holes to make sure that you don't fertilize in, because if you put that gun in there and it's fertilized in, that top is going to come flying off the top stuff. Don't leave that gun
we go. Make sure it's all the way down flush. Then you insert. I gotta be there. Young lady. There you go. Insert it into the hole, and then you turn it over and tap it. And then you're gonna see the temperature drop. As you can see, the temperature is dropping. And you can see some of the vapor comes out. That's okay. You wait for it to drop all the way down, and then you wait for it to come back up to about the same temperature, about 225, 230. So it's on the way back up. You can see that this doesn't take very long. And we're good. So now we've got to get this off. And I'm not strong enough to do this. I have to do the screwdriver. And I just let it drop to the ground. I let it drop to the ground. I let it cool. And then I come to the next one. And my temperature is up, so I'm good to go. Remember, don't touch the top. Pull from the bottom. Make sure it's flush. And put it in the hole. Flip it and tap it. And then you just wait. Temperature's going to drop again. If you want to, you can hold that up a little bit to keep from losing as much vapor, but I'm not sure it makes that much difference. With those two. So I'm going to use my screwdriver to pop off the coffee glass. And we can turn it back. Okay, so that's the only two we're going to show. I only have 2 cups. This ProVap comes with 2 cups. You can order more cups. And it's really helpful if you have a lot of hives to have like maybe, 5 to 10 cups so that you can load them all up and just keep going. But I have to stop because I have to reload my cups. And then I'll start my generator back up and I'll do 2 hives at a time. So this is the end of this video. I'm going to finish the rest of the hives and then I'll be back with you when we do the post-treatment mite drop count. You can end.
Okay, so I've completed the oxalic acid treatment on all 7 hives. I know I probably sounded quite muffled at times because the protective equipment that the mask that I needed is ever so important. You cannot use this product without protective equipment. So I'm just going to go over a couple of things just in case you couldn't hear me well. Okay, so again, at the back of the hive, I have drilled a 3/8 inch hole into the bottom board, and that goes into the bottom board. You want it kind of towards the top of the bottom board. If it's too far down, it won't go all the way through. It'll go just into the wood, and that doesn't work well. And I did mention, and I'll mention again, that you need to make sure that's not propylized in, because if there's obstruction, then all of the pressure from the gun will come back into the chamber and it'll pop that lid off right into your face, and you don't want that to happen. So so you make sure that's not propylized in. Also, at the tip of the gun, and I'm going to walk down here to the end where I've done all the hives, sometimes the oxalic acid will build up right in the tip of the gun, so it's nice to have just a I just use a little metal tool, and oh, here's a good example. You can see, where are we? You can see where the oxalic acid has built up right in the tip of the gun. Now, this is turned off, and that happens sometimes when it's turned off, and you can
a lot of times you can simply use a screwdriver and just tap it off, but you need to make sure that's not obstructed, because also if that's obstructed, same thing will happen. The pressure will build back up in the chamber here, and your little cup that sits on top is going to come flying off, and you don't want that to happen. So we have now treated all 7 hives, and we'll do a drop mite count in a day or so. This was a particularly good day to do an oxalic acid treatment. If you look around, the skies are gloomy, they're dark, it rained all night, it's going to start raining again at 10 o'clock this morning. It's about 8:30 right now, and so pretty much all the bees are in the hives. As you can see, there are very few bees flying, just a few at the front, but for the most part they're staying home, and that's what we would expect. Yesterday was a beautiful sunny day and they were everywhere, orientation flights, and it would have been a terrible day to do this. So that's why I picked today to do it, because I want all the bees in the hive so that they all get treated. And we'll talk again when we do the drop mite count. Okay, so today we're going to look at the mite counts, both pre-treatment, during treatment, and after treatment. So you can see on my pre-treatment counts, my mite count load was not very high. This was a 3-day count though, and I had 3 hives out of 7 that had more than 3 mites per day on a 3-day count. So I elected to go ahead and treat with a single application of oxalic acid. And you can see from my post-drop counts that the mite counts, although again they weren't exceedingly high, they increased by about 4 to 6 times per hive. Again, this was a 3-day count, so if you divide those by 3, the maximum was about 15 or so, definitely less than 20. And so that's really not a bad mite count for a post-drop count. And then the third column is my post-treatment mite count, and that was done about a week after my treatment. And you can see all of the hives were well below the 3 mites per day. This was again a 3 mite count, and I didn't even have any that were as much as 2 mites per day. So I consider this a very successful treatment for the winter, and my bees should go into the winter and early spring build up healthy. I shouldn't need to treat again for Varroa mite until after the nectar flow.